Hello and welcome to Oak Road Hatter, where, as always, I'm joined by Jamie Castle and Adam Driscoll. How are you doing, Adam?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Sort of feeling a bit indifferent from the game on Friday. It was a funny game to sort of try and get into as well. So yeah, interested to get your thoughts on that as well, both of you guys, and see if you have the same sort of opinions as I do.
And I'm joined by Jamie Castle. How are you doing, Jamie?
Yeah, not too bad. Cheers, Finn. A slightly dreary Sunday where I am, so it's sort of not that upbeat. And yeah, as Adam says, I hope we can try and be a bit more upbeat on this podcast than what's looking at outside, because yeah, otherwise it'd be pretty dull.
As Adam mentioned, we're going to be talking all things West Brom from that 1-1 draw on Friday night. And we'll be looking ahead to the fixture against Cardiff City on Wednesday night as well. But before that, we're giving away 3 chances to win a £25 voucher to spend on Oak Road Hatter merch. First of all, you have to subscribe to our channel at Oak Road Hatter. Then like and tag 2 or more people in the comments on any video published between Sunday the 3rd of November and Friday the 22nd of November. So that's today's pod through until the podcast that will be previewing Luton's game against Hull City. You have 1 chance to enter per episode, so if you like and comment on several episodes between then, you can multiply your chances of winning. There'll be a tweet promoting this exact giveaway posted on Sunday, which today, when this podcast is recorded, which will pin on our Twitter profile. All you have to do is like and repost that tweet and tag 3 or more people in the comments to enter. Of course, you have to make sure you're following us over on Twitter as well. And finally, any order placed between Sunday the 3rd of November and kick-off for Luton versus Hull City at 3 p.m. on Saturday the 23rd of November will be entered into a giveaway. Multiple orders means multiple entries. So if you want a chance to win a £25 gift voucher for any of our merch, be sure to do any of those things. But we'll get straight into the episode, and as I said, we're going to talk all things from that 1-1 draw. And Adam, I'm going to come straight to you. You said it's difficult to get up for that game. It was difficult to get up for the game during the game, and I want let's talk about that.
Yeah, it was a little bit. I mean, the first half was probably one of the worst halves of football I've seen in a long time from both teams. To be fair, it was certainly lacking quality. There was a period of play where I think we sort of both teams gave the ball away, or even passed it straight off the pitch like 6-7 times in a row, and you'd be mistaken for or forgiven for thinking you're watching sort of a Sunday league game. So yeah, it was a really interesting one to try and sort of get into, and then obviously the situation with West Brom scoring just before half time. Um, but certainly the first half was sort of devoid of any real quality, and it was it reminded me a lot of the games that we've played pre Sunderland and Watford type performances. It was certainly lacking in quality in the first half, really.
Yeah, it was a game that the first half particularly lacked any real quality, aside from a very good finish from Josh Madger, which I mean probably could have been dealt with better in the first place by Luton's defence, but the finish itself was very good. I think the quality of the game was probably summed up by Alex Palmer's horrible, horrible day of goal kicks. I don't know how many goal kicks he put off the pitch, but I think there was at least 6 in the first half. And that pretty much reflected that first half as a whole from both sides. Just no quality. A lot of players running around trying to get involved, but nothing really happening, Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game that the Sky bosses probably weren't too delighted to have picked in hindsight. I think, as you say, I think the first half did lack quality. I think overall, I think if you look more tactically and in terms of sort of like territory and dominance, I think we certainly were the better side. The game from large parts was played in their half of the pitch. So from that perspective, I think positive for Luton, and I think probably unfair to have gone in 1-0 down. I think I'm not sure we deserved to go in behind. But as you say, obviously, what one moment of quality, and I think that sort of summed up our season. Where I think on it, on the whole, in terms of the games that we have lost before the Watford Sunderland game, there's been 1 or 2 where obviously we've been absolute dire, but there's other games where we sort of been on top and had sort of like dominance on the ball or had territory, but just sort of lost our heads for a moment or two, or the other team have had that bit of quality, and then they've scored from it. So I think we've been very unfortunate, and I think that first half sort of summed up our season in a nutshell, which is frustrating because, as I said, I thought we were on top in terms of um, that sort of up until that last ball, or the sort of the creation of that chance. I think we were certainly the better side. Um, I think there's a lot of positives, obviously, in terms of personnel. I think to have Mengi and Bell back was really important. I think Amari'i Bell just sort of gives everyone that sort of that bit of peace and that confidence at the back, right? In terms of when he's on the ball, he's just very composed, and he's a player that we've missed for the last few weeks. So yeah, well, I think we went in 1-0 down. Yeah, I think probably unfair in terms of the booze at half time, because I think, as you say, we weren't that bad, but clearly, given the situation we're in, that obviously has added a bit more pressure onto Edwards.
Yeah, it was a somewhat uninspiring first half all around, and the boos at half time, as you mentioned there, probably reflected more the season so far as a whole rather than that performance. We actually did dominate the ball, I mean, for the whole game, which is expected, really, considering we were the home team. Um, we had 6 shots in the first half, but nothing that I can think of that really tested Alex Palmer at any point, besides maybe an Eli low shot. And as you mentioned there, Adam, as well, you said about players being unable to put passes together. I've just looked at the stats for that first half of football, and we had 69% pass accuracy, and West Brom had 67% pass accuracy. So for both
Yeah.
sides, it was a pretty terrible first half. But as you mentioned there, Jamie, there was players back from injury, somewhat surprisingly, seeing Bell and Mengi in the starting lineup. I'm sure that came as a surprise to you guys when the team was announced, as much as it did to me. But them being back meant that Hashioka was able to play at right wing back, which I think is the first time he's played in his actual position since we signed him in January, which is absolutely just baffling and just shows the situation we've been in defensively. But Adam, he had a very impressive performance.
Yeah, I thought he was really good. He's taken a lot of criticism, isn't he? Like last season, and I mean, clearly he was thrown in at the deep end, not only to be thrown into the Premier League, but also to be thrown in out of position in multiple positions. So yeah, I mean, to bounce back and to be able to kind of settle back in, and he's done pretty well, to be fair. Individually, I think in other games he's played in this season since he came back, but yeah, Friday night, he looked really strong. He's a I think what I like about him is I think he enjoys the battle. He doesn't shirk away from the physical side. He's happy to commit a foul. He's happy to try and win his headers. I'm intrigued to see what else we can get from him from an attacking perspective, because my impression of him has been that he's more of a right back, like a traditional right back. Whereas obviously everyone knows the system that we play is more of a, it's going to be more of a wing back. So I am quite, intrigued and yeah, a little bit excited to see kind of what we can get from him on that attacking side. But certainly from a defensive perspective, I really don't have any concerns over him compared to the rest of our defenders.
Yeah, Jamie, he's probably developed his defensive ability over the last 6 months or so just by having to play at centre back for us in a team that was really lacking defenders at points.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think I mentioned on a previous pod. I mean, his time over in Belgium, I think he sort of was pretty good in the stats in terms of aerial duels won, etc. So I don't think he was necessarily bad at that previously. I think it was just the fact that he was in the Premier League against different specimens that they have at that level. Obviously, clearly the various games that he were involved in as well. Obviously, Man City away we keep coming back to, but yes, Man City are full of technical excellent players, but they're also not that small, like not that small either. I mean, from set piece, they have the likes of sort of Diaz and Stones and Vardio and Ake, etc. You've got Haaland up top, so in those sort of games, it makes it tougher anyway, right? So I think to come down a level and sort of be able to find his feet a bit more, I think he's coming to his own a little bit. And yeah, I think this season I would echo what Adam said. I think he's been very good. I don't think he's made a mistake at all. He might have done a couple of misplaced passes, but he doesn't nowadays. So I think overall he's yeah, I think he's been very good. I think there was a game, I think it was the Sunderland one, where he started on the right of the three, and I think tactically he was probably a bit off it in terms of, I saw Edwards having a few conversations to him in terms of that switch over to the left. Um, but yeah, overall, I think very good. I think going forwards, I think he did play as wing back in a five in Belgium for a little bit, and I think he seemed to get forward quite a bit, and I think we did see glimpses of it in the second half, albeit, I mean, ironically, he was right back in a 4-4-2 for sort of the large parts of that second half, and he still got forward pretty well. Again, that bit of quality at the end, I think he put a few crosses into the Kenny end sort of in the last 15 minutes or so, where you just think a bit more quality in that situation, and maybe we go on and get the winner. But as we said, it's his first. I think it's certainly his first start this season in terms of being a right back or sort of that right wing back. But yeah, promising overall. I think certainly will add more going forwards for us than maybe a Walters, who's probably a bit more defensively minded. So I'd be exciting to see if we do obviously stick with the three and get Doughty back, to have both Doughty and Hashioka as sort of like the wing backs. I think would be really good to see overall, especially if we have our first choice back three as well. I think Bell, Mengi, McGuinness, Burke. Obviously, we do have strength in depth at the back if they're all fit.
Yeah, obviously we were without Alfie for that game, and it was a somewhat unconventional Moses at left wing back, and I'm sure he's played there plenty of times before. But Edwards made the decision at half time to make a change and took Moses off, bringing on another midfielder in Shanda Baptiste, which meant that Chong moved to left wing back initially, which I mean, I was pretty baffled by him going to left wing back, as were a lot of people. But it paid off, and that's where we got the goal from Adam.
Yeah, I mean, I was when I read the lineup, even at the start of the game, to me it was sort of reading that Moses would be on the right side, Hashi would be centre half, and Bell left wing back. That's kind of how I assumed we were going to shape up. But obviously, that wasn't the case. I think Moses really struggled to get into it, and obviously evident, by the fact that he was kind of taken off at half time. But in terms of the changes Edwards made, I thought Baptiste probably his most impactful performance for us. I know it was only for half an hour, 35 minutes, something like that. But he sort of seemed to have a bit of a purpose about him. And I don't know. I think I can sort of see. It's hard for me to see the game tactically sometimes from being that low down on the front. Um, but he seemed to be sort of a bit more progressive in the midfield as opposed to like sitting back and picking up things. He seemed to want to get on the ball and move things forward, which I think is the sort of player he is and the sort of player we need him to be. So for me, he was massively impactful and really kind of the main reason for that turnaround in performance in the second half. And I mean, there was a lot of split or not split opinions. There was a lot of disappointment on the subs, particularly with Kraus and Eli going off. I can't say that I agree with them at the time. I think Kraus showed his frustration by all accounts, and my opinion of Kraus, regardless of how many games that we're playing, is that this is really a guy you want on the pitch for as many minutes as you possibly can. So I appreciate the subs may have worked on this occasion, but I'm not sure that I'd be taking Kraus off too often. But you have to kind of hold your hands up and say fair play to Edwards. I think the changes he made did have a positive impact, and ultimately, we've gone on to get something out of the game.
Yeah, I think first one, Baptiste, I'm a massive fan. Obviously he's fresh back from injury, so still getting fully up to speed. But I just think he's one player in the team that you can just tell has had a few years at the top level. He just, I think, at times oozes that class on the ball and just has that confidence that maybe some of our players don't at times. So I think for me, it absolutely is in our best 11. I think Chong at left wing back, just yeah, I mean, he did score. I think it was. I'm not sure whether we'd made the switch formally to 4-4-2 at the time when he scored, but clearly, obviously, he pounced from deep and managed to benefit from a mistake. So I wouldn't necessarily think that it was Chong at left wing back that meant we scored the goal. I think it was just by virtue of luck at the time. I think. In terms of Kraus and Eli off, I mean, in hindsight, the personnel change did work. Obviously, I think what I thought Walsh, to be fair to him, was excellent when he came on. I think on the ball was very very good and did pull strings. I think it was more the change to the 4-4-2 that worked rather than the personnel. But then if it was Clark rather than Kraus that came off, then I'm not sure who you put out at right mid. So you put Jordan Clark at right mid. So I think it does make sense when you sort of like think through it. But clearly, obviously, Kraus is a fan favourite because of the effort, the work rate, the sort of the quality in the press, and I mean, face to goal, he's quality on the ball is very good as well. Although I think Walsh in those tight spaces, I think definitely has better quality. I think that there's no debating that Walsh is better on the ball than Kraus. And then Eli for Brown. I think for me, I was frustrated because he was my captain on EFL Fantasy, but so I was like, for God's sake, come on, just won't just score a goal. But yeah, Jacob Brown comes on, and to be honest, no arguments with that because I also like Jacob Brown. I think, yeah, you think at 1-0 down, why the hell are you taking off Adebayo, right? Because he's your centre forward, scored 2 and 2, but then to bring on Jacob Brown isn't that much, if any, a drop off from Eli. I think okay, they're different players a little bit in terms of the way they play, but I think if we can get Jacob Brown into our sort of starting 11, then I would absolutely be for that. I mean, don't know what you guys think if we put Brown sort of on the right of a 4-4-2 where he's sort of playing right mid and that pressing from that side, I think would work. And I was saying towards the end that was probably one of the last changes I might have made. I might have done like a Joe Taylor for Jordan Clark and put Brown out on the right. So we've got we do have a lot of quality players, and I think that's really frustrating because you can bring on the subs like Jacob Brown, even despite all the injury issues that we were saying about in the build up to the game, we've still got some real good quality on the bench. So I know we'll go into Cardiff sort of on the second half, but it's a game that we really need to be winning with the quality that we do have in the squad.
I think it's interesting when obviously we brought on Brown for Eli. I think you can tell that Morris and Adebayo have played together for quite a while because they do have that link up. They know where each other's going to run. I didn't necessarily feel we had that so much with Brown and Morris. I think they were sort of going for the same balls. They are quite similar in a way, and so I think there obviously needs to be a bit of work on that partnership as well because inevitably there'll be a time where we're going to play both of them together instead of Eli. Um, so that was an interesting thing. I think maybe it didn't quite have the desired impact that I was expecting as a front two partnership because they are going for the same balls. I don't know what you guys thought on that.
There was that one moment actually where they both went for the same ball, and I'm pretty sure Morris absolutely clattered Jacob Brown, and Brown just looked at Morris like, "Ow!" Like
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure like Brown's like back was like snapped forward, and to be honest, was probably fortunate to not come away with anything a bit more serious in terms of like a muscle strain or something because that they clattered into each other. So yeah, no, I think overall agree. Um, it's just if there's a way we can get maybe all three of them into the team, or I would really like to see Brown and Eli as well at times. I think that's difficult because clearly Morris is the captain, he's the penalty taker, and you want him on the pitch more times than not. But yeah, if you could somehow get all your quality attacking players on the pitch, then it'd be great. But clearly that isn't how it works.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely recall that moment when they both went for the same ball because it meant no one was running in for the loose ball behind after they got to it. I think that's something that Eli gives you that neither of them do. He'll run for that ball, or Brown will run for the ball, but not when he's been crushed by Morris. And there's not that many players that are going to physically beat Morris to a loose ball when it shoulder to shoulder. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about Liam Walsh because he did come on. As you mentioned, he was very impressive when he came on. he offers something completely different to the other midfielders we have, I think, in terms of the way he moves the ball in tight spaces. And he gives us a very different option playing out from the defenders, Jamie.
Yeah, he does. I thought he was sort of like the deeper of the two in terms of Baptiste, and sort of came short and really allowed us to get up the pitch. You saw at the time when it was like Walsh and Baptiste. Baptiste knew to sort of get forward and Walsh sort of drop back, and it was almost came. It was at times a little bit of a diamond where he sort of had Chol and Clark as well, was sort of coming in the middle and sort of in terms of those wide eights, and it sort of did on the pitch. Clearly, it wasn't a diamond, but just the way the rotations worked on the pitch, I thought it had that sort of that feel when the sort of the four in the middle did come a bit more centrally. I think you can see that on the sort of like the heat maps as well at times. But no, Walsh in that deeper area, sort of taking the ball off the centre halves and being able to sort of just sort of play the ball through the lines. Yeah, I was really impressed. I think that there was a couple of moments where he did some pretty quick 1-2s and sort of was able to get past the midfield for West Brom pretty easily. And I think had he came on probably a bit earlier, or maybe coming at half time, or whatever, maybe we could have got that second goal. But no, I think overall I was very impressed with Walsh in that sort of half-hour cameo.
And he's done well there to sort of rebuild his reputation with the Luton fans after that shocker against Oxford United. I think it's important that he gets them back on side, and I think he probably did that with his performance. Let's talk about the reaction again to the substitution, because I don't think we really mentioned that enough. I think it was the Kraus substitution more than the Eli one that resulted in those boos, but I don't think we've heard a reaction to a substitution or an Edwards decision like that, maybe ever. And I just wanted to find out what you think, Adam, in terms of, is that the crowd really losing their patience with Edwards recently?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I don't think we've had that sort of reaction to a sub before for a long time, actually. I'm thinking about probably back to Graham Jones. I think it stems from the fact that Kraus, he's an intensity player, isn't he? He does so much running and pressing, and when you are not where you want to be in the game or in the season on the whole scheme of things, when you take off the guy that does the running, um, you're going to get that reaction. As I say, I think ultimately we got something out of the game. I would like to see us be able to leave him on and also influence the game from a positive perspective in terms of like getting someone on the ball, and whether that means occasionally Jordan Clark gets subbed off instead, because we've spoken about this before, where Clark seems to be a 90-minute man every week, regardless of um, the kind of frequency of fixtures and how quick and how thick and fast they're coming. Clark's not the one that makes way. So yeah, I think the reaction was probably fair at the time. And as I said earlier on, I would like to see Kraus kind of being kind of immovable, if you like, from the team. And yeah, I mean, it all stems from the whole pressure of the season, doesn't it? If we're sort of like just outside the playoffs or mid-table, and we make that change in that particular game, it doesn't get the reaction that it did, because we can accept being behind in a game, and we can always disagree with substitutes, but it's just the whole situation and scenario of where we are and how we've been playing that's built up to that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, on Kraus, obviously he's a fan favourite. I think all three of us on the pod love him, and a lot of other Luton fans do as well. I do wonder at times. I think as much as Edwards does appreciate him as a player in terms of what he's good at, is he actually an Edwards player? Is he actually an Edwards signing? And I think back to Alan Campbell, right, where I think at the time he came in, Alan Campbell was probably a starter. He was certainly in sort of the first 14, 15 players, so maybe sort of like the first 11 plus subs, and he just somehow, or for some reason, phased Alan Campbell out pretty quickly, right? He sort of brought in the camera in sort of that DM, and then had a bit more progressive centre mids in the eights, and Alan Campbell didn't really get a look in. And I think I look at Tom Kraus, and he's a fairly similar player to Alan Campbell in terms of sort of that duo, so body, that off the ball work rate, the pressing. Okay, it does have some quality on the ball. I think that there was a ball he put Eli through on. I thought early on that was obviously great quality on the ball, but overall he's not that technician of a midfielder. So I do wonder if he is Rob Edwards midfielder. And I think you saw early in the season pre-Kraus, and Edwards was trying to play a midfield pairing that on the face of it is better in transition in terms of on the ball, and can play out from the back and can play with their back to goal to receive from the defence and then turn. Whereas I don't think Kraus or Alan Campbell, for that fact, what were those or are those sort of players. Obviously now roll forward to where we are now, and he's sort of reverted back to type where he's sort of long balls. Which, by the way, I don't remember a game where we played that many balls over the top as we did last Friday. I think we were very, very direct, more so than we have been for a while. Now he's reverted back to that sort of style of play. Obviously, Tom Kraus suits that system because it's very much get the ball forward, Kraus, you push on and try and win the second balls. Whereas I think earlier on, he was obviously trying to transition into sort of a better team on the ball and trying to sort of dominate the areas of the pitch on the ball rather than try and dominate off it. So I just think a little bit might have twigged in Edwards' mind where maybe, right, we've not got the personnel to play the style of play that he wants. So therefore we just need to play this style of play that we currently play in, and therefore Kraus is good at that. But there's still times where Edwards might have a leaning towards wanting to be a bit more progressive, and when he does that, Kraus isn't that sort of player. So it'd be interesting to see how it develops through the season, and certainly in January. I think if I'm Edwards and I want to play the style of play that I want to play, I'd be very demanding in January for more technical players, better players on the ball, and players that can sort of, just dictate the play a bit more, because Kraus dictates the play off the ball, but he just doesn't do it quite as well on the ball, because that's the sort of player he is. So I think January will be really, really interesting to see what happens.
Do you think it's a player that we need in the squad when it seems like recently Nakamba's not really been that favoured with Edwards? So do you need one of those workhorse midfielders that maybe lacks that technical element as well as one of those technicians in the team, Adam?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I know we're playing sort of three centre halves, but it's not exactly given us cover, is it? It's not made us watertight at the back. So I think for that reason alone, you have to have someone in front of them that is that sweeper, if you like, that someone that's just they're gonna press, but they're also gonna not do a lot else other than they've got to sort of get the ball and pass it sideways. I mean, on the camber, not really sure I understand what's going on there at the moment, because I appreciate he can't play every game, and you might think he's going to probably play every other or something, but he's not really featured the last 3 or 4 games maybe. He's certainly not started. So, and for me, when he's fit, he's probably the best in the league at what he does, or certainly one of the best at what he does. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit confused as to what's going on there, and particularly when you look at the impact that he had in the last 6 months of the promotion season. Is this purely a fitness thing where they're thinking, like, we're going to be lucky to get 30 games out of him, and therefore we need to pick which ones, or is there anything more to it? I don't know what you think on that, Jamie.
I just think I go back to what my last answer was. I just don't think Nakamba is an Edwards sort of player, and I know he sort of was signed under Edwards, but I think it was needs must in terms of, look, we're currently in November, we're in a good part of the season to maybe go and try and get promotion. So what do we need for the here and now? Well, we need this dominating midfielder to try and break up the play. The camera's available on loan, so we'll bring him in. Obviously was excellent for us in that half a season. Unfortunately got injured, so missed most of the Premier League. But even still, I don't think he would have got in the midfield with Barkley and Lokonga. Now we roll forwards to where we are now, and the camera's obviously 2 years older from when he was when we signed him in the Championship. So clearly he's probably not as good physically. He's not been able to get fully up to speed. So I think probably Krause is better than the Camber. I think in the here and now, if it was one or the other, I'd go Krause over the Camber in terms of. I think Krause is going to be the fitter, the more durable over large parts of games in the season. Probably slightly better on the ball as well than the Camber. And I just don't see Edwards as much as we might want to see it. I just don't see Edwards ever playing Krause and the Camber together, unless it's out of circumstance because of injuries or you sort of 1-0 up with 10 minutes to go away at Leeds, and you just really want to just sort of put your sort of defensive midfielders on the pitch. Unless it's those circumstances, I cannot see Edwards ever starting with Krause and the Camber together. So I think for Nakamba, it's just the fact that he's behind Krause, which is obviously a shame because we know how good he was for us in that season that we got promoted. But I think that just adds more sort of weight to the argument that I just don't think either of those players really are Edwards midfielders.
I mean, we've got plenty more in terms of the team that we think is going to feature in the next game when we discuss the Cardiff preview in part 2. But for now, we're going to go to a quick break. Before that, don't forget we've got chances to win £25 off on our merch, but we'll be talking more about that at the end of the podcast as well. But check out our merch on our Oak Road Hatter website. Plus, give us a follow on the socials at Oak Road Hatter on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Hello and welcome back to Oak Road Hatter. I'm still joined by Jamie and Adam, and we're looking ahead to the visit of Cardiff City on Wednesday night. It's a Cardiff team that started the season absolutely awfully, and I think it was pretty widely discussed that they were going to sack their manager, and they did. And rather than bring in a new manager, they've gone and they've kept the interim manager, Amari'i, and he seems to have turned things around recently. I mean, they're unbeaten in their last 6, Jamie. What kind of threat do they bring?
Yeah, it's a very strange one, as you say. Were pretty dire for the first 7 or 8 games, and now I've gone on a bit of a run of form. I think probably aren't going to be your conventional team to come up against. I think they've got they definitely do have quality in the ball. They've obviously got El Ghazi, who's got lots of experience at top level. I know he was at PSV pretty recently as well, and obviously now he's to Cardiff, and yeah, he's a good player. Ruben Cole, we're obviously one of the Welsh prospects. I think up top is good. It's a really hard team to sort of distill. I think they played O'Dowda and Rinomhota as like their fullbacks yesterday against Norwich, and they're just not fullbacks, which I think a very difficult team to break down and work out. But as you say, I think they're in good form. I think the home form more than away form is obviously the better of the two. But I think they've still had 2 pretty decent away performances at West Brom and Bristol City in recent weeks. And those 2 teams individually are fairly good as well. So be a tough test. I think I saw a comment on the last pod saying he thinks that every pod we say it's a must win because, well, right now it sort of is a must win. But I think this one on Wednesday really is a must win. I think if we don't win on Wednesday, then it starts to look a bit desperate because what would that be? Be sort of winless in 5 maybe, or winless in 6, I think. And yeah, that starts to get a little bit desperate. So for me, absolutely a must win this time more than any other time before.
And they've turned things around massively defensively since the sort of change of manager. They've gone from conceding pretty regularly in the opening few games of the season to now only conceding 2 in their last 6 games, one being in their win against Norwich yesterday, and the other in a 1-1 draw on the 7-side derby against Bristol City. So it will be another tough test for our attackers. But where can you see our threat coming from, Adam?
I mean, I think our threat is going to be in that front 3. I'm not sure I see that changing unless it's enforced. So I think it's still going to be starting the game with Chong in that kind of hole. and then the two forwards. I think bear in mind we've got Doughty back. He'll come straight back in at left wing back, and undoubtedly that is a threat that we have from set pieces as well, and crosses, and his ability to cross into those front two. I know there are some stats going around about like how many successful long passes or crosses we've made, but he does provide that service into them, doesn't he? So yeah, I mean that'll be our threat. I think we need to continue to play in that more direct style. I mean, I look at their team. I know Jamie's gone through a few of them, but I sort of look at their back four they played the other day and think, that's certainly one to be got at, isn't it? With two players playing wing back that aren't really, fullbacks that aren't fullbacks. Callum Chambers is a decent player. I'm not sure about the other centre half. So I really look at it and go, right, okay, well, this is a game where I'd expect us to be, bang on the front foot, and certainly showing that attacking intent. Um, Absolutely agree with Jamie. It's a must-win game, because if you can't win this one at home, like what other fixtures do you look at and go, they're more attractive on paper? I know they've had an upturn in form, but they're not going to be pushing sort of like top 10, are they? So a home game against Cardiff is, yeah, certainly one game that we need to be winning.
And they have got some interesting players. It's a real mishmash of players in that squad. Obviously, they've had a real change of managers constantly over the last few years, and they seem to have all brought in different players. Obviously, they've got they brought in Ethan Horvath as a starter. We know all about Ethan Horvath, and he's been quite quickly dropped as a starter. And I mean, if you saw Cardiff fans on Twitter, they could not stand him at one point after some of the mistakes he was making, which is obviously not what you want to see. But yeah, he's not a starter anymore. So they've got Jack Hannock in goal, who's, I mean, I thought he was about 45. He's still only 31. But going forward, they have some interesting attackers. They've got Chris Willock, who is a very good attacker on his day. He's a bit inconsistent, but he can cause problems. Anwar El Ghazi, as you mentioned, Jamie. And then another player who, when he plays well, and if they can get the best out of him, Callum Robinson is a real threat going forward.
Yeah, he is, and I was looking at the last lineup and he didn't start, so that's why I missed him completely. But yeah, I think he's probably the one player in that team that is of the quality that I think is dangerous. Clearly, I had a lot of time at Sheffield United and West Brom. I think he was at Sheffield United in the Premier League season, wasn't he? I think it was that season, because that was the COVID one. So yeah, he's probably the one player that has the quality. I'm not sure where he's been playing for them, whether it's sort of at centre forward alongside Colwood in a front two. I think they've sort of gone between a 4-2-3-1 and like a 4-2-2-2, like a 4-4-2. Which, interestingly, obviously, we played something a bit similar in the last half hour on Friday night. So if we can do 4-4-2 v 4-4-2, then we're going to be back to the 1990s football, aren't we? In terms of those matchups, which would be one for the ages. Which, to be honest, I'd love to see. I think, as we pointed out, their fullbacks are very unconventional. So if we can get Chong and Doughty as sort of those left and right mids, really trying to have a go at the left and right backs that they've got, then yeah, that would be, for me, the area that I want to try and dominate is those wide areas. And it's an area that I think is Everest trying to dominate, because we've put in God knows how many crosses so far this season. So yeah, probably one that won't change too much on Wednesday night.
Yeah, Callum O'Dowd will certainly get forward down that left-hand side. They'll probably have Perry and G back at right back, because he was suspended for picking up 5 yellow cards, a bit like Alfie Doughty. So it's going to be most likely a very new battle that will down that left. Alfie being back is massive, isn't it? The threat he brings, not just from open play, but set pieces as well. I think you could see against West Brom, we were missing that corner delivery. It was pretty, I think it was Baptiste taking them in the second half, and it was pretty inconsistent, those deliveries, Adam.
It was, but I mean, bar the one he put onto the roof of the net, which he's trying to do a Keith Keane, wasn't he? I quite like the option, the variation of having that right-footed in-swinger as opposed to Doughty, who obviously constantly takes the away swinger. So it's something I'd like to see us be a little bit more flexible with, in terms of, I know Doughty will take free kicks, and obviously he's good at crossing the ball, but on certain scenarios, let's have a little look at that Baptiste corner, because he whips it in. He does fizz it in. Hashioka was unlucky at the near post to not quite get his head around it and a bit more, inside the post. But it does give, it gives the opposition different things to think about, rather than knowing that Doughty's always going to take an outswinger. So yeah, I'm hopeful that we'll see a little bit more variety on those set pieces when Baptiste's on the pitch.
And Edwards mentioned that he had to bring back Bell and Mengi early. They both looked to get through the West Brom game fairly well. Bell more so. Mengi, I don't know if you guys saw, but he was struggling a few times in the second half. He sat down at one point and was struggling with a knock, and then he cleared the ball off the line a bit later and was limping after it. So he seemed to be in the wars a bit more than Bell, and it's probably just a bit of the way they play. He's a lot more physical. But hopefully they'll both be available for the Cardiff game, because we could see a back five of Hashioka, Mengi, McGuinness, Bell, and Doherty, which is something that I think we've been calling out for and hoping we can see for absolutely ages at Jamie. Just purely because of injuries, we've not been able to see it yet.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to see that five, but I think, as you say, having rushed them back from injury to play them for a second 90 minutes in what 4 days, especially when you got Tom Holmes back as well, who was also suspended, and before the red card at Coventry, I thought was excellent in that week of games. So for me, I'd probably play it on the safe side and give either Mengi or Bell a rest. Probably Mengi over Bell, because what Bell gives us on the ball in terms of driving forwards, and allows us to change to a back four sort of in game. So yeah, I'd probably rest Mengi for Holmes. But yeah, Doughty comes back in absolutely. Hashi absolutely starts. And yeah, don't want to curse it too early, but after a bit of a strange week, losing lots of players all at the same time, again, we're getting back to what seems like full strength. So I just hope that we can stay full strength. Yeah, as you do.
The midfield selection is going to be interesting. We've already discussed the different players we've got in midfield quite a bit, but can you see Edwards bringing in someone like Baptiste from the start, considering he brought him on at half time and gave him that full second half, Adam?
I'm not sure I can see him doing it just yet. I think, like, he mentioned last week, Edwards, about the risks needing to be taken, and we certainly saw a few surprises in the starting lineup and obviously the bench. Yeah, I agree with you, Jamie, in terms of that defensive setup. I think I can't see Mengi and Bell both starting again in that short window, and I think with Holmes available, as you said, he'll come back in. Just on the midfield, I think Baptiste probably won't start yet. We need to build players up to full fitness for the rest of the season, don't we? So I think it's unlikely that he comes in, and I would say more probably looking at the two that are more favoured by Edwards at the moment in Krause and Clark. I would imagine they'll probably go again. Maybe with again the ability to kind of bring on Baptiste and bring on Walsh.
I do think the hate that Clark gets sometimes is undeserved. I think he hasn't been as bad as people have made out. But is there ever a time where you think he might just get a rest or get dropped? Like, obviously Clark has played so many minutes, and I think overall has been okay to good. I think he started off pretty poor, but he's come into it a little bit now, and I think he's been good for the last few weeks. But I just wonder if there's ever a time that that Edward sort of changes it, whether he starts Walsh, for example, or as we say, starts Baptiste sort of later down the line. I just wonder what Edwards has in his mind as his sort of ideal first choice midfield. I think I'd love to ask him, if you have everyone fit tomorrow, who would be your first choice midfield? And I wonder if Jordan Clark would be in that, or whether he's just playing out of sort of circumstance because of injuries, and he's now got that fitness and momentum of playing the games. Because for me, I think Baptiste should come in. Obviously, I think a fitness is the question mark in terms of whether he can play 90 minutes. But I think for me, Kraus and Baptiste is that midfield too. Certainly in that 3-4-1-2 type system that we're playing with Kraus and Baptiste in the midfield and then Chong just in front. Yeah, that's probably the change that I would make, barring obviously Baptiste being sort of fully fit or not.
I mean, with Clark, I think he's one of those players that Edwards trusts the most, probably. He's one of the more senior players in the squad. If you're looking at the players that he probably trusts most, I would say that's Clark, Morris, Bell, Alfie. Those four, I think, are his four players that if he's going to go to a team when it's tough, I think he'll go to those players because he needs the ones that he knows what they can offer and he can see them. I mean, they're the players that stay fit probably most consistently, aside from Bell recently. I don't know if you agree, Adam, but yeah, if Clark is probably more likely to play because Edwards has the faith in him that he might not have or might not know what other players can offer yet.
Yeah, I think so. You've only got to look at like who's been captain as well. I think all this so far this season, I think Bell, Clark, Morris, all have obviously all been captain in Lockyer's absence. So clearly, he does have an element of trust in them and sees leadership in them as well. And I think that really is sort of pretty much sums up why he trusts them so much.
There are plenty of options to pick from though, and maybe a Cardiff team who have been on an upturn in form, but I mean, I'm not sure they're a team that dominates the ball. I don't know. I've not seen their games so far this season. And I'll do a very quick check and probably get proved wrong. But if it's a side that we're going to have more of the ball, can you see him maybe including someone like Liam Walsh, Jamie?
Yeah, I think that's probably a change that could be made. I think that, as we said, his cameo on Friday was very good, and he looked very positive in terms of getting the ball forwards, and probably is technically better than Clark, so would allow us to be more dominant in those areas. I think you're right. I don't see Cardiff as a team that looks to dominate the ball. So yeah, potentially. I think for me, one of the big things as well is clearly we've just come from a week where we had two excellent performances against Watford and Sunderland, and then was obviously off it against Coventry. And I think one area we didn't touch upon in the sort of post Coventry pod was how much of an impact going again and going again with the same group of players had on that last performance. I think the Coventry game was just a step too far in terms of playing 19 and 19, and obviously got to the second half, and I think the players were just sort of just dead on their feet really. So how much do you freshen up the side on Wednesday, knowing that you've got a Wednesday night game against Cardiff, and then you go up north to Middlesbrough at 12:30 on Saturday, which obviously, without being offensive to Cardiff, the Borough away is the tougher game out of the two. So you want your best players up to sort of full speed and full fitness for that. Clearly, Doughty and Holmes haven't played for about 10 days by the time we get to the Cardiff games, so they're more fresh. So that they can certainly go again Wednesday and Saturday, but the likes of Kraus, Clark, Morris and Eli even, and Chong, like you got Hashi. I know Hashi hasn't played an awful lot of games this season, but can you play 90 on Friday, 90 on Wednesday, and then 90 again on Saturday? So do you even freshen him up with half hour left on Wednesday? So I think that squad selection is going to be really interesting, because we can't forget that we've got a tough game away at Borough very soon after that game on Wednesday night.
Yeah, it's that time of the season where the fixtures come really quick, particularly after the international break, which will come after the Middlesbrough game. I can't remember when the fixtures are, but Middlesbrough being on 12:30 on Saturday is ridiculous anyway, but that's not what we're talking about right now. I'm sure we'll have plenty to say about that when we come to that. Just before we finish, I just wanted to get a predicted lineup from both of you. So, Jamie, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, so obviously goal is obvious. Back five, I think. Yeah, we do Holmes for Mengi. So I'd go Hashi wing back with Doughty, and then Holmes, McGuinness, Bell as a back three. I think he will go again with Kraus and Clark, just because I think Baptiste won't be fully up to speed, and I think Baptiste might get the start on Saturday at Borough instead. So I think he will go again with that sort of Krause, Clark, Chong, Morris, and Eli. But I would expect to see a lot more changes early on in that second half on Wednesday night, just to freshen it up. So maybe you do Brown for Morris instead on Wednesday night, just to give him a sort of less minutes. Maybe you switch Chong for Moses as well, with sort of half hour to go as an example, or you bring on Nelson as well. So I think there will be more changes in game, but I think in terms of the starting 11 on Wednesday, I think probably only one change, and that's Holmes for Mengi.
Adam, do you agree it's going to be fairly unchanged aside from that defence?
Yeah, I think so. It'll be two changes, won't it, with Holmes and Doughty? But
Yeah, of course. Sorry.
I can't disagree with that. I think that's probably the best we can do at the moment, with obviously fitness into consideration. So yeah, I don't really have any other comments on that.
I mean, we spoke about Chong a fair bit in terms of him needing to step up with his game. The goal against West Brom might be what starts him really kicking on and being more productive in front of goal, and with the assist. Obviously, he does well. He wins a lot of fouls, so he's probably one of the most fouled players in the division. And that is important to getting us those set pieces, which we are a threat from. Having him at his best is vital to the way we play. And I think going forward, I think if we're going to progress up the table, I think he needs to be at his best as well as the strikers in front of him. Just finally, I'm going to get a score prediction from you guys. So, Adam, I'm going to start with you this time.
I'm going to go for a 2-0 win, and you might be surprised by my positivity, but I don't know. I just feel like we're due more than one goal. We're due a couple of goals. And I think, I don't know why, but I think we'll keep a clean sheet as well. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 win.
So I also think we're going to win. I don't know about a clean sheet. I'm not sure if we've got clean sheets in us that often. So sorry, Jamie. I'm going to jump in first here. I'm going to go 2-1.
Yeah, well, no, I thought 2-0 as well, to be fair. I think we've got the defensive bodies back. We've got, obviously, Mengi, McGuinness, Bell back, Holmes to add into that, Alfie to add into that. You got Hashi sort of starting to sort of get better game by game. So I think defensively we're looking solid, and obviously then you got in goal Kaminsky. I think has been excellent in terms of shot stopping. Okay, maybe a few things on the ball he's done not so well, but shot stopping he's right up there at this level, and we should be keeping more clean sheets than we are. So hopefully that starts on Wednesday. So yeah, I don't want to try and copy Adam's score, but I was thinking 2-0 just as you were saying it. So I'll match him on that.
Optimism all round from all three of us, and we'd love to know your score predictions as well. If you're watching or listening to this before the Cardiff City game, let us know what you think and what the result's going to be. Obviously, before we go, we're not go back to that £25 gift voucher giveaway. We've got 3 chances to win £25 gift vouchers to spend on our merchandise. First, all of you have to subscribe to our channel, Oak Road Hatter. Then like and tag 2 or more people in the comments on any video published between Sunday the 3rd of November and Friday the 22nd of November. So that's today's pod, which is episode 19, through until the podcast that we'll be previewing our game against Hull City. You've got 1 chance to enter per episode, so if you like and comment on several episodes, between then you can multiply your chances of winning. There'll be a tweet promoting the exact giveaway posted on Sunday the 3rd of November, which is today at time of recording, which we'll pin on our Twitter profile, that's X. All you have to do is like and repost that tweet and tag 3 or more people in the comments to enter. Of course, you have to make sure you're all following us on Twitter as well. Any order placed between Sunday the 3rd of November and kick-off on Luton versus Hull at 3 p.m. on Saturday the 23rd of November will also be entered into a giveaway. Multiple orders means multiple entries, so make sure you're heading to our website and checking out the merch, because you could be in with a chance of winning a gift voucher to spend on our merchandise. And it's coming up to Christmas, so it's the perfect time for it. So check out our socials and check out our website. But from us, that's all from us, and hopefully we'll come away from Cardiff with a win.